much time, but I try to present because we have really a quite comprehensive approach for these demand-side energy policies, and wanted to refer to them. Next slide, please. In a number of contexts. Now, of course, we had to have this approach in the context, first of all, of the Green Deal, and the effort to make Europe carbon neutral, first neutral continent, as our president declared in the beginning of this commission. And then we started with measures in this respect, including one of the first communications was on energy system integration, with one of the objectives being to promote energy efficiency at system level. Of course, we need energy efficiency in every activity we do, for every products we use, but a comprehensive integrated approach to the energy system would be beneficial and would enable also individual measures to play a more important role. Therefore, also the demand policies have been anchored in a number of our policies. Let's start first, and here you'll see with the relevance in the energy markets and the market design. So with including here the smart metering. Then we had the Repower EU, which made us even more ambitious in terms of targets for energy efficiency, for renewables, for decarbonization, and for independence on imports of fossil fuels, notably from Russia after the invasion in Ukraine, and therefore we had to have more ambitious objectives, and we put this in the recast of the Energy Efficiency Directive and Renewables Directive, which were in plan based on the objectives of Fit for 55, which were designed for the Green Deal, but now even stronger ambitions. I will present a bit about the results of this, also about the EPBD, where we had the last dialogue. We also have a digitalization action plan, and we will have, this is still in plan for next year, a heat pumps action plan. So all these elements together show the interest we have for demand side approach in our energy policies. Next slide, please. And here you can see how the needs for flexibility in the future energy system will increase. Will increase at least 2 times by 2030, will increase 3-4 times by 2050. And this is that we speak about dailies, that we speak about weekly, or we speak about monthly needs. And when we speak about all these needs, it's clear that we have to take into account all the solutions for flexibility we have, including demand side measures, including storage, including large-scale storage, and the approaches we have for energy system integration, and which bring in the end the overall system efficiency. Okay, so just to say that. Now, next slide is about this relevance in the demand side flexibility in the EU. We had the electricity directive and regulations, which are very important, and now we try to upgrade this market design to have demand response to really help tackle volatility of wholesale electricity prices, and to bring benefits to the consumers and to the grids at the same time. In the next slide, you have, because I don't want to spend too much time, a quick overview of the reform of our electricity market design. And you see here that we speak about enhancing non-fossil flexibility sources, such as demand response and storage. So with the aim to accelerate renewables and to have an impact positively on prices and on the grid services. We also speak about enhancing the flexibility services by system operators and creating more opportunities for renewables and flexible sources. But it is in this context that the market design also includes measures that make flexibility solutions and smart energy services more accessible to consumers. And for this, we have a number of tools, including to provide more, or we suggest more tools to provide more than one metering billing points, to provide for the use of dedicated measurement services sometimes embedded into the appliances. So, and also to have these prosumers and also the communities and self-consumption schemes which to be put in place. On the next slide, to show just some of the current results in terms of the smart metering, we have in the EU over 50% penetration rate. But I have to see that in about 12 member states, almost half, we have over 80%. Some countries really distinguishing, going to 98%, like Denmark, Finland, Estonia, Italy, Spain, Luxembourg, and Latvia. So these are really showing very, very strong deployment. Next slide, please. But as I said, demand-side policies are not just have to be integrated also and linked to what we do with markets, but there are more things to do. There are more things to do, and this REPowerEU, which I was mentioning, with the objective of reducing, first of all, dependency on gas from Russia, accelerating the energy transition, had a number of measures in many measures also the demand side. And these measures were on one time, short time, sorry, last year, 2022, including here an energy saving communication, but also longer term measures. And here we speak notably about energy efficiency, notably about renewables, more ambitious, but we also include here the role of hydrogen, which will have to decarbonize, play an important role in decarbonizing part of the energy system, which is based on molecules, not on electrons. And we know that even in all decarbonization objectives by 2050, about half of our final energy consumption may still be in molecules, synthetic gases, synthetic fuels, biofuels, and so on. So this needs to be decarbonized as well. But first of all, we are more engaged on the efficiency and renewables. Also here, the heat pumps with the objective to deploy 10 million heat pumps in the EU. So quite ambitious also on wind and solar on wind. We had recently a communication. Next slide. This is about showing the renewables, and clearly that this has implications on all sectors, because now it's a target of 42.5%, which we even aim maybe to get to 45. Aspirationally, it's clear that renewables have to enter and be integrated in all sectors of the economy. Next slide is not only power generation, where we'll reach clearly over 70% by 2030, but, and if you go to next slide, it's very much about having renewables entering and penetrating. We have objectives, targets in transport. We have objective and targets in heating and cooling. We have also in buildings, 49% actually renewable share in buildings. And we have in industry, which is also very, very important, and an objective of 1.6% increase per year. And the use of 40% sub-target for renewable fuels of non-biological origin. This is basically hydrogen derivatives from renewable hydrogen. And this is extremely important, making actually Europe the first region in the world with its concrete targets for renewable hydrogen, for creating this demand, which is necessary to break the chicken and egg problem. What we do first, produce, and where we use it if we produce, and so on, and unlocking the potential of a global renewable hydrogen market, on which we are happy to work with many countries in the context of G20, in the context of Clean Energy Ministerial, and in particular in our cooperation also bilateral with Japan. So that's why I'm happy to mention this, where we have a dedicated memorandum of cooperation. Next slide, please, is about the Energy Efficiency Directive. And this is extremely important. The directive has now entered actually into force, was adopted this autumn, and is very important because there's a number of key provisions. First of all, is about the energy efficiency target and indicative national contributions, the energy efficiency first principle, about how to strengthen the energy saving obligations in the end use, the exemplary role of the public sector, and the focus on energy poverty. Next slide, please. It's in terms of overall target, it's very ambitious. You know, this is quite unique to a large extent for Europe. this decrease of real consumption, in particular in the final sector, a final energy consumption, a binding target of 760 million tons equivalent. So we have for 2030 this target of 11.7 decrease in energy consumption, which will go hand in hand with increasing shares of renewables in all sectors, as I have shown before, including in the sectors notably more difficult for penetration of renewables, being heating, being industry, or transport. Now, next slide. Here you have an overview of the key demand side measures. And first of all, is about the role and the exemplary role of the public sector, where we aim to renovate 3% of the public buildings per year, and to reduce the final energy consumption of 1.9% per year. We also have an article to increase the cumulative energy saving obligation, going up to 1.9% cumulative as of 2028. We have also energy efficiency in industries, and we have introduced energy management schemes for enterprises which have a consumption over 85 terajoule-hour, and a little bit less ambitious if you want to put less burden on those with only more than 10 terajoule to have energy audits. We have also important heating and cooling plants to ensure energy efficiency in municipalities with a total population over 40,000 inhabitants. They have to have these plants. And we have also definition of efficient district heating and cooling. This is quite an important feature in Europe. It serves almost 60 million customers, and there are 17,000 district heating systems operating in Europe. Next slide. Next slide is about the APBDs, the most recent one, which we had the conclusion of the trilogue last week, and where we speak about renovation, about minimum energy performance standards, about the certificates and how to make the certificates more harmonized and minimum criteria at European level, about the national building renovation plans, which actually replace long-term renovation strategies. Then we have the dimension of decarbonization, introducing zero-emission buildings as a new standard, consideration of whole life cycle carbon, and phasing out of fossil fuels as an objective. I'll refer to this in the next slides. Also on financing, very important, sustainable finance and energy poverty alleviation, and how to do this financing and for what type of objectives through the renovation passports. The modernization and system integration, looking at infrastructure for sustainable mobility, linking the link also with e-mobility, introducing smart readiness indicators, and also looking at other sustainability and environmental dimensions which are important when we do renovations, for example. Next slide. As I said, we had the political trilogue just last week, and we expect a transposition deadline now by mid-2026. So this gives us a bit of 2 years for a lot of work, both at Commission level on guidance, clarifying, and on support to member states in the process of transposition. On the next slide, you see a couple of important provisions, in particular related to these renovations. When we speak about non-residential buildings, they have to be done based on this minimum energy performance standards and should have 16% of worst performing buildings by 2030 and 26% by 2033. For residential buildings, we are also ambitious in terms of renovations, 16% by 2030 and 22% by 2035. So with a supporting framework for vulnerable households, and of course with some exemptions which are necessary in the market. Next slide is about the important zero-emission buildings and the way we define them, and new standards for new buildings with a clear vision for 2050. So to gradual introduction of life cycle global warming potential calculation. And this way we move from actually G-glass building to zero energy buildings. Next slide. Few words about solar energy and sustainable mobility. This is also important for gradual installation of solar energy on existing buildings, including residential gradually. So this is all very important to the link efficiency renewables. We also have the smart charging and where appropriate bidirectional charging, and also softer measures parking spaces for bicycles. Next slide is about the national building innovation plans. As I said, they replace long-term innovation strategies. So they are common and harmonized template with national targets, and member states have to set timelines for further improvement of their building stocks. We'll look into this and we'll have submission stages in this respect. We'll issue recommendations. We'll follow up on the building innovation passport schemes. We'll ask to create and support to create one-stop shops. And member states will also have to develop roadmaps, which roadmaps should include measures which will lead to phase out of fossil fuels in heating and cooling by 2040. Next slide is about the digitalization action plan. Work is progressing on this. It was adopted in 2022, and clearly digital technologies have a very important aspect of the energy transition, because can enable and can facilitate when we speak about system integration, when we speak about integrating e-mobility, when we're speaking about storage and so on. All this digitalization will have an important role to play, and will also help consumers and energy communities to play the role, the prosumers to be able to integrate it to the market. And the work is progressing on this plan, notably underlining this dimension of empowering citizens, offering them to provide the energy markets with their contribution, but also having access to all data required. The heat pump action plan, and this is my last point, it is foreseen for the next year. It's based on a communication head, and we aim to have the partnership between Commission and the member states to communicate to all interesting groups, to also link it to the legislation we have, in particular in terms of eco-design and labeling, and to promote clearly the financing. Speaking about financing, I would like to mention here that a lot of the financing we have on this, it's basically concentrating on the demand side. We have here the recovery and resilience plans. We have the cohesion policy, and we speak of hundreds of billions of euros which are allocated, including for energy efficiency on demand side, on renewables, penetration also on the consumer-related side, in industry and transport. So the financing will be very important, but also the leveraging of financing as a financial instrument. So the Commission level will also launch now in December a strengthened ASIF with financing coalition, and this is to be noted as well. Thank you very much, and glad in the end I could make this contribution, and wish a successful seminar, and will stay with you as much as possible. Thank you again.
Thank you.